This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. The name sounds familiar because it is where my podcast studio is held. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. And since we can't get any of the local businesses to sponsor what we do here, I figure I'll sponsor the podcast. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet somewhere. I can do this in a basement somewhere. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery, and I can do this podcast. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. You know, we've had a lot of amazing success stories that keep me so filled with gratitude that I do this. We're here all day long, running meetings all day long because we want to help as many people as we can. And even when we help one, that's the biggest victory in the world. And that's how I feel right now. So if you can help out what we do here, then that would be amazing. You know, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to. And, you know, all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on. If you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you know, you can reach out to me. And we can talk about how you can be a
Welcome to the
sponsor.
show, Michelle.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, what is your sobriety date?
It is 8/8 of 2019.
8
So
8
August
20.
8th.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So you just celebrated 2 years a little bit ago.
Yes.
Is this your
Yeah.
first crack at sobriety?
No, it's not my first crack at sobriety. This is the longest I've ever had sober, though. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what was your main like drug of choice that you got sober from?
Heroin, IV heroin, and Xanax.
That's quite the
Yeah.
mixture. I always said that opiates and benzos were like our version of Quaaludes because we didn't have Quaaludes back then. You know what I mean? Like I always said that was the closest I could find to Quaaludes was mixing the Percocets and the Xanax together. So now, when did you get started with, did you just get right into opiates or did you start drinking first or?
No, I didn't get straight into opiates. The first thing I started to do was smoke marijuana. But I stopped doing that really quickly because I had started doing that when I was 14 years old. But my parents could smell that on my clothes and in my hair and like in my vehicle and all that stuff. So I quickly became very, very sneaky and started, I had started drinking a little while after that, but I was like, they can smell the alcohol too. And so I started to do cocaine, like a lot of it. Yeah.
Now, and this is down in Texas?
Yeah, in San Antonio.
Okay,
Mhm.
so growing up, now when you're saying you started out with marijuana, that was like teenager? Like we said, like your vehicle,
Yeah.
so you had to have been.
Well, I was 14 years old. It was the summer before high school. Yeah.
Okay,
So
and
the
that's when
summer
you
right
started
before high
smoking.
school
Yeah,
is
that
when I
makes
started to
sense.
smoke. Yeah.
And yet, it's funny the things that we do to avoid getting in trouble. Like, the most innocent thing in the world's like smoking a joint. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And yet, like, oh my God, I could get in so much trouble for the smell of this. I should put something in my nose instead.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can't
Like the
smell it.
logic is just absolutely insane. Yeah. The first time that I smoked marijuana, I smoked it in my parents' bathroom. My dad came home banging on the door. He's like, Michelle, don't you think I know what that smell is? And I was just mortified.
Well, so
Yeah.
if that was your first time, so you didn't know that that was gonna smell like that?
I didn't think ahead at all. I had never smoked a cigarette or anything in my life. So I didn't realize that the smoke was going to just envelop like the entire house. Looking back at it, it's so silly. But yeah, I was a kid.
Yeah. What were you smoking? Like, was it a joint or a blunt
Yeah, it
or
was a
okay?
joint. Yeah, it was a
It's so
joint.
funny. I remember like catching my sister smoking, and
Hmm.
she doesn't smoke. Like she was like, I think she just graduated high school and her and her girlfriends were like celebrating graduating. And I was
Yeah.
in the basement and I could smell it. It was in the middle of the night and I could smell like how like you're gonna wake up our parents and I'm gonna be the one getting blamed for this because I'm the older one. They know I'm a pothead. And
Yeah.
at the time I was an addict. Um my sister's like straight A's. I'm like, how are you what are you smoking? She's like, we're smoking a joint. I'm like, all right. And she was like, I don't know why it smells though, because we're blowing all the smoke out the window. I'm like, where's the joint when you're smoking it? She's like, what do you mean? I'm just holding it. I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
what this smell, where do you think that's coming from? It's not the smoke that smells. It's the
Mhm.
paper that's burning. So you're holding your joint inside in the house and blowing the smoke out the window. The smell is still staying in the house.
You're
And she's like,
right.
oh, like the smartest girl in the world, like fucking straight A's.
Yes,
Mine was blown
exactly.
when, you it's so funny as
Yeah.
someone that's not like into it. So how do you find cocaine then instead? Was it like a friend?
Yeah, man. Um, so I was a freshman in high school. One of my friends from elementary school went with me to high school, and his family sold drugs, and so he always had drugs on him, whether it was in school. I spend a lot of time after school at his parents' house and stuff like that. So yeah, I got it directly from him, and then eventually it got to the point where I was going to the person that he got the drugs from. So yeah.
So what was it that you were trying to find in drugs? Like, so, you went, okay, I'm gonna smoke. Oh shit, I can't
Hmm.
smoke. Okay, I'm gonna drink. Oh wait, they're gonna smell that too. Okay, I'll do coke. Like I feel like
Hmm.
you were trying to find something.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very, from the time that I can remember going back to my childhood, I always felt very uneasy in my own skin. I was very self-conscious. Um, I was really scared all the time. I didn't feel comfortable speaking out loud. Um, I'm also very empathic, so I'm very sensitive to other energies that are around me. And I constantly just felt overwhelmed and bombarded by other people's energies, just all this stuff. So I was running into the arms of drugs looking for a solution because I felt like my body was just way too overwhelmed by energy, but I also wanted to get courage to speak and to be confident and to be this person that I wasn't. Um, I found that people did not accept me for who I was. And a lot of times I was just bullied or pushed aside, or when I spoke up, people didn't listen to me. But as soon as I started to do cocaine, I felt this sense of being invincible. Like I could do or say anything, and then people would listen to me.
So you were able to actually speak up and be heard once you started doing coke.
Yes.
Did you get like? Was it just like you were all of a sudden you had courage? Is that what it
Yes,
was like?
absolutely. Yes. All of a
Okay.
sudden, I had courage. The Most of the time I had this hesitation in me to speak up or to do things, or um, just to have fun, or just to be like courageous. And as soon as I would do a line, it's just like it just came like that. And so I wanted to do it all the time.
Are you an only child?
No, I'm the eldest of well, me and then there's two brothers.
How much older are you?
1 year
Okay.
from one of my brothers, and the other one is 7 years younger than me.
Okay. No, yeah, I'm the oldest of three, and I
Hmm.
felt like I was exploring myself, like trying to find and like you know what I mean, like where I had problems where I didn't feel heard,
Yeah.
and that's one of my triggers that I've talked about in my episode of like I never felt heard. I always felt dismissed. Even in my friend group, I always felt like that my opinions didn't matter,
Hmm.
and so I always felt like I need to find a way to escape these feelings all the time of like, getting
Hmm.
away. And I feel like the oldest children, or we might as well be only children sometimes when you're the oldest.
Hmm.
Did you feel different from your brothers besides being a different gender? Did you also feel like different from them growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was trying to navigate my life completely on my own. Um, at the same time, my brother, that's a year younger than I, like we were super close, but I felt kind of like an alien. Just I thought differently, I spoke differently, the things I like to do were different. And yeah, we were just in a completely different mindset. So I felt that even though we loved each other a lot, I felt like I was navigating this world all on my own. And but once I started to do drugs, like then I started to make like friends or whatever, and I had things in common with people for the first time in my life. And so just being able to have that connection with other people is what drove me to stay in that addiction.
Yeah, well, it's really easy because especially when you're looking to be accepted, and all of
Hmm.
a sudden these people are doing these drugs with you, so they're going to accept you really easily.
Right.
Um, what? So if you're like 15, 16, getting into coke,
Yeah.
um, were you doing it like every day at school too, or is this like just like whenever you could get your hands on it kind of thing? Because like coke isn't
Hmm.
cheap.
Yeah. Most of the time, like I didn't have to pay for it, and I didn't do anything like sexual for it or anything like that either. I was just simply, my best friend was the drug dealer. So I just got it from him because we'd been friends since we were like, what, 8 years old or something like that. Yeah, 8 or 9. So it started off where I did not do any drugs at the house. Um, but as soon as I would get to school, like between every single period, I would go and do a line in the bathroom every single period. And then after school, until it was time to get, my parents would pick me up, then I'd be getting high all
So
day.
who knew you were getting high in school? Just your friend that would sell it to you?
Yeah, my friend that would sell it to me, and then the other people that I was using drugs with.
That
Um,
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, now looking back, I've had a lot of people reach out to me from Facebook that are, seeing my YouTube channel and seeing how long I've been sober and all this stuff. And they're like, wow, we had no idea that this was going on with you because, I mean, I was an athlete. Um, I did 2 days. I'd work out in the morning, work out after school, go to basketball games, volleyball games, and all this stuff. I was a cheerleader. Like I kept myself busy. And I don't know, people, I could put on a really good front.
Yeah. So you did sports in high school then too, all year round. It sounds like, could you just name like
Yes.
3 different seasonal sports? Like,
Right.
so if you're doing sports all year round, and that's
Hmm.
probably growing up that way too. I mean, I grew up in a family like that where we were doing sports all year round. You never had a family dinner because you were at somebody's practice or somebody's game. Did your
Yeah.
brothers play sports too?
Um, Here and there. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure how
Not
busy.
as much as I did.
Yeah, it got crazy in my house with my brother and I both playing, and my sister. I mean, we were always, at hockey or baseball or football, or it was always something.
Yeah.
So what made you go from coke and upper to, dope?
Yeah. One of the things I liked about cocaine is that it gave me courage. But if I did just like a little bit too much of it, I would get this tremendous amount of anxiety. Um, After I graduated high school, I moved to California for a little bit. And after I left California and came back to San Antonio, um, I got addicted to crack. Uh, and that was super, super overwhelming. But after letting that addiction go, I had started to try Xanax. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should try a downer. And then once I tried snorting heroin, that's whenever I felt like, okay, this is really what I've been looking for, because it still gave me the confidence, but at the same time, it wasn't like I was overly amped all the time. It was more of a manageable high for me. Yeah.
So what took you to California? Where in
Mhm.
California?
Yeah.
And why'd you come back? Were you
Yeah.
doing
So
drugs
what
in
took me
California? I have a lot of we skipped over.
to, yeah. So I went to California because I wanted to be a model. and I wanted to get into acting, and I did a little bit of both. I did a lot of what is called independent films, and I did a lot of work like at California Institute of the Arts, and did a lot of Friends student films and things like that. Um, I didn't really drink much while I was there, rarely, because I was just so focused on my passion, and I really wanted to succeed while I was out there. And I didn't do any drugs either. So there was about a year and a half while I was in California that I was sober like 99% of the time. I lived in Valencia. I also lived in Los Angeles and North Hollywood. So I kind of moved around a little bit. But yeah, what ended up bringing me home was that my family needed help. My dad needed help with taking care of my grandparents. And so I came home for a summer, and then just kind of gave up on my dreams and just decided to stay in San Antonio. And I moved out of California and came back
This
to SA.
episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. The name sounds familiar because it is where my podcast studio is held. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. And since we can't get any of the local businesses to sponsor what we do here, I figure I'll sponsor the podcast. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet somewhere. I can do this in a basement somewhere. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery, and I can do this podcast. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. You know, we've had a lot of amazing success stories that keep me so filled with gratitude that I do this. We're here all day long, running meetings all day long because we want to help as many people as we can. And even when we help one, that's the biggest victory in the world. And that's how I feel right now. So if you can help out what we do here, then that would be amazing. You know, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to. And, you know, all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on. If you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you know, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor.
Yeah, and that's when you decided you wanted to escape again?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like, is it boredom, or was it like I need to escape and I'm overwhelmed?
It was a combination of both. I was frustrated with myself and angry that I gave up on my dreams. I think I was 21 years old. I was living with my parents again, so I wasn't happy about that. Um, I had to go back to working in the restaurant industry, which at the time I felt like I was a failure. Um, and so after work and stuff, I just really wanted to escape because I was beating myself up over the head with guilt and shame. And so I would just hang out with the people after work and just get high and drunk all the time.
So was it correct because that was you started like seeing somebody and they're like, "Oh, I have some crack," because that's a random one to jump to from coke to drinking a little bit to like, I'm gonna get addicted to crack for a minute and then find myself into some opiates and some benzos. And I feel like the only time that happens is when you're dating somebody that influences it.
Yes.
Or yeah, was that okay?
You're correct. Absolutely correct. So
Okay.
I got
Just random.
I had always been this type of person that was so easily influenced by other people that were around me that I would just enmesh myself with them. So if this is what they were doing, this is what I was going to start to do, because I was just so desperate to be accepted and to be a part of their crowd that I'd be willing to do anything. So my boyfriend at the time, he found another drug dealer, sold coke, and I don't remember the details because there's just there's a lot of damage that I've done to my body and my brain over the past 25 years, because I was in addiction for 25 years straight.
Because Xanax doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help. So my brain is still healing. But
how old are you?
I'm 41.
Opiates keep us young. You look amazing. at 41.
Yes, opiates keep us young looking.
Jesus Christ.
It's crazy. Yeah, but he was selling coke, and then Every once in a while, I would see his friends smoking crack. And I just got really, really curious because I was like, they just look so relaxed. And I
Which
didn't
is
like,
so funny because like you call somebody a crackhead when they're acting crazy. You
yeah.
know what I mean? When someone's like skitzing out all crazy, you're like, calm down, crackhead. And you're like, oh my God, those crackheads look so relaxed. I want what they have.
That's exactly what I was thinking, I swear. Um, but that's how crack affected me. Like I remember my telling my boyfriend, like, please teach me how to make crack. And he was just like, no, like I'm not gonna teach you how to do that. So I manipulated his friend into teaching me how to do it when he wasn't around. And then I got addicted to it. And eventually I just started cooking all the coke so that I could make crack. And oh my gosh, it just got really out of control really quickly. I mean, I thought that being addicted to cocaine, like powder cocaine by itself, was intense. But being addicted to crack, it's like every 5 minutes I wanted to take a hit.
Yeah, I mean, that's, the insanity of what we do.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, once you get addicted to any drug, really, like any drug, that's all you really want to do every 5 minutes, you know, most of the time. Like, I was addicted to snorting anything,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
line me up anything, So I get that. So then what made you decide, okay, this is too much, this is too intense, this is going way too fast, too soon? Like, what made you stop all of a sudden the crack to then move into something else?
Honestly, I just got bored with the way my life was going, and I got really tired of my boyfriend at the time. I was super selfish and self-centered, and I really once I went through these phases, JD, of like dating people for like 7 years. And then when I got to that 7 year, I just got really bored and I just dropped you like I didn't know you. And so I was just ready for another relationship. I was ready for a new adventure in life. So I got a new boyfriend again. I got a new job. And the next person that I dated was into Xanax and
Okay.
pain pills and alcohol.
So yeah, that was the thing, was okay, instead of people, places, and things.
Yeah.
So now you have a new boyfriend, but this new boyfriend doesn't like crack, but this new boyfriend likes benzos and downers.
Hmm.
And you're like, well, I'll try that because I always do uppers. So let's see how this works.
Yeah.
And then it was exactly what you've been looking for.
Yeah. I feel like every new drug that I tried was always what I was looking for. Um, but it never really was. But every new drug that I tried was like the new shiny toy for me, and I was just ready to play.
Mm,
And with a new boyfriend came like a new cast of friends and a new job and partying after work and all these things that came with it. But yeah, at first it was just I started to drink uh, a lot of beer, um, and then started to go to bars like right after work. I would take like my little mini skirt and all this stuff to work, and as soon as we clocked out at like 9 p.m., I went into the ladies' bathroom, put on my little tiny dress, and like sped like to the bars and would drink and start doing Xanax. And my boyfriend was like, "Oh my gosh, you get so much Xanax. I would get 120 bars a month." And I had gotten that prescription for years, and I never knew that if you drank with it, that it could make you feel the way that it made me feel. And I was like, bingo, I've scored, and I had no idea. And then so I started doing that all the time. But eventually, just the drinking and the pills got boring for me. Like everything tended to get boring. And after we would leave the bars, I would start hanging out with people, and some people would be doing coke and other drugs and stuff. And then eventually, I was offered some heroin, powdered heroin, and I tried that.
So, yeah, because you black out almost right away. As soon as you mix
Mhm.
benzos and alcohol, you're blacking out. So it
Mhm.
tends to get boring really fast because you don't remember shit.
Exactly.
Even if you had a good time, you don't remember it. So it's gonna
Right.
feel boring, and it's gonna feel like it hurts. And the thing is, my question is about the boyfriend. Now, you said you were hanging out with other people that introduced you to powder heroin.
Mhm.
But he was just more into drinking and Xanax and pain pills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and so how did he feel about you getting into heroin, or did you not tell him?
Well, actually, he was the one that tried it first.
Okay.
He was just into drinking and pain pills and Xanax and stuff. And then he started to make some newer friends that were into powder heroin. And so he tried it. And me being the codependent that I used to be was like, well, I don't want you to do it without me. Let me do it with you. I don't want you to go through that experience by yourself, which was just insane. But yeah, that's the way that I used to act.
Yeah, well, that was a really popular way to act back when we were in
Mhm.
addiction. You were getting
Yeah.
you were getting 120 bars a month and didn't realize that it was like drugs.
No, I had no idea.
That's
Yeah.
funny. That's kind of funny. That all of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah,
you're just like you found the mixture of like, oh, this is what happens when I mix this with
yeah,
alcohol. Um,
yeah. I had started getting that prescription when I was like 18 years old, prescribed for anxiety, and I would take it every so often. But I was taking it as prescribed, and I wasn't taking the whole bar by itself.
yeah.
So yeah.
Which is funny that you needed it at 18, but it's probably just because you were doing a lot of coke and you seemed like you needed to calm the fuck down.
Yes. Right, right.
So now, how long did this last with this boyfriend? Because you said the 7 years was like your thing. Did this
Yeah,
one
7 years, JD.
clockwork 7 years? You'd be like, all right,
Yeah, 7 years.
how old are you?
Absolutely.
How old are you at the end of this 7 years?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. 30, 32,
Okay. That's what I was
32-ish.
thinking in my head. That's what I had in my head was 32.
I
Now,
think so.
does that also mean that you then found another new boyfriend? They take you up to 39 into the end of active addiction, and then you've been
Exactly.
single and sober for the last 2 years?
Exactly. Yeah, now we're starting to see a pattern, right?
Yep, there it is. So, boyfriend
Yes.
number 3 at 32.
Mhm.
What is
Yeah.
he? Does he introduce you to something, or does he just like, oh wait, does he introduce you to shooting?
No, actually, it was the previous boyfriend that started to shoot heroin behind my back, and when I found out about it, I got real jealous. And I was like, "How dare you do this without me?" And then I started to shoot up, and yeah, the rest is history. I got really addicted. Just when I thought like being a crackhead was super addictive, putting a needle in my arm, no, that's a different animal. It was terrifying how driven I was, and I was just so obsessed and just like pulled by the needle. It was insane.
It's crazy how resentments work. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like your resentment wasn't, oh my God, I can't believe you're getting high like that and shooting
Yeah.
up. Your resentment was, I can't believe you're shooting up and you're not letting me shoot up with you.
Right.
I want to shoot up and do it with you and do it the same high you're getting. It's not fair that
Yeah.
I'm not getting the high you're getting. So
Yes.
it's so funny. Like are you a 12 stepper?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because, I've talked to people and not everybody has done the steps.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you have your own show, which, people, what's your show called for people watching or
The
listening?
sobriety playbook.
Is
Yeah,
it
the
now?
sobriety playbook.
I know it's on YouTube. Is it on audio platforms as well?
It is also on Spotify.
Okay, cool. So when you're talking to people at all, I know you talk to people, like I have found that everyone obviously does it recovery differently. Even myself, my recovery looks different from anybody else's, and it's supposed
Yeah.
to. Our addictions look so different, but the steps are extremely important. The steps
Right.
helped me out a lot,
Yeah.
especially with resentments. And
Mhm.
when I got to that list of everything that I resented about myself, I
Mhm.
was blown away that like I think 3/4 of my list was resentments against me.
Right.
you know, and I had a sponsee where it was like barely any against himself. I'm like, you're doing this wrong. You gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta go back and do it again.
Right, right. Yeah, and sometimes, like for me, what I realize is when I'm taking a sponsee through the steps and their resentments against themselves is like a short list. Well, they're being as honest as they can be in this moment. But the good thing about doing a thorough fourth and fifth step is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like they always say, that we're always going to get another chance to look at stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, hit it again on your next go through. I mean,
Yes.
you're not done doing a 4 and 5. I do them daily.
Yes, exactly.
Whenever I catch a resentment, I'm trying to figure it out on the fly and call somebody on it, you know.
Right.
So now, did this new boyfriend introduce you to anything, or was he already in the life, or?
Yeah, he really didn't introduce me to anything. You know, he drank and did drugs on the weekends. He was that type of person. But he was like one of those type of people that didn't have to drink and wasn't addicted to drugs. Like he could just do it whenever he wanted to and could set it down whenever he wanted to set it down. I wasn't that person. And really quickly, you know, all the partying at night and having people over to our apartment and all that stuff, I started to go step over his boundaries, and he started to get really, really concerned and worried about me. Um, and I got really resentful at him because he was trying to stop me from destroying myself, and I just wanted to do whatever I wanted to do without having anybody tell me how I should live my life.
Well, you said at one point that people didn't know that you were an addict.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still ringing true in your into your 30s, that like people in your life didn't know that you had a problem unless they like were really close to you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
family and friends and shit, they didn't know that, like, oh
Right.
yeah, Michelle likes, shoot up here and there.
Yeah. Most people, I mean, my parents knew. My brothers knew, but nobody knew the extent of how insane my addiction got until I spoke up when I started to try to get help. Because I became such a manipulative person. I was such a liar, and I for the most part kept up my physical appearances pretty well. um and and I dressed nice and wore nice makeup, and so I had this mask that I was always wearing, and unless you were super close to me, you didn't know I was an addict, and the trick was not to let anybody get close to me.
Every 7 years. um when 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 did you, like, you just said like, oh, they didn't notice until like I started saying I wanted to get help. When
Mhm.
was it to where you were like, I need to change shit?
Probably when I was about 38 is when I started this process of going in and out of rehabs, going in and out of detoxes, going in and out of psych wards, all that.
So you're dual diagnosed then?
Yeah, yeah, I was. Um, but at this point, like, I mean, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety and all these things, but um, I've just realized that if I could reprogram my subconscious mind and ask my higher power to direct my thinking, and not try to control things on my own, and I'm being of service to other people, and work in this program, like I don't experience depression or anxiety. The only time I'll experience those things is if I'm in self-will.
Yeah, which makes sense. How often? Well, okay, we'll get there. So now you're finally going to detoxes, you're going to rehabs, but it sounds like you're getting out of detoxes and rehabs and it's not sticking.
Yeah, it's not sticking because the problem was that I was trying to get sober for other people. Um, like in my heart, I knew that I needed to get sober, but I could see how it was affecting my family and my boyfriend and the people around me. And so at that point, every time that I would go in and out, it was because I wasn't truly ready yet. I
Yeah, you
wanted to
needed
get
to be
sober for
sober.
others.
Yeah, you needed
Yeah.
it, not wanted
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah, because there's a
Yeah.
huge, obviously, when you need it, it's for your boyfriend or your parents or whatever. When you want it, look at you now. So
Mm-hmm.
what was it that you changed that scope? Was it one of the times that you needed it where it clicked and you heard something, or was it one of the times you're like, fuck it, I just want this?
Well, I would say it was the last time that I went to rehab when I was 39 years old. And I woke up 3 days after being driven from San Antonio to Austin to go to this rehab. And I had been blacked out for like 3 or 4 days. And I woke up, and the technician there at the rehab was like, "Do you know where you are?" I had no idea where I was. So I was like, I think I'm in the state of Texas. Um, the issue at that point was that um, Xanax didn't work. Um, the heroin couldn't get me high anymore. The alcohol wasn't working either. It
That's the
it
first to
would,
stop working.
huh?
That's the first to stop working for me was the alcohol.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was just, I was absolutely terrified, JD, because until that point, like I could escape for a little while, at least for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, but when it got to the point where the alcohol and the drugs didn't work, I was like, well, what am I going to do? I felt like I was in a place where I needed to really make a decision. Am I going to stay sober? Am I going to make that decision to get sober? Am I going to keep trying to use drugs and hopefully they'll get me high? But the thing is, like, I was so scared. I had tried to commit suicide like so many times by overdosing and stuff. But I would always wake up, either on my parents' bathroom floor or in a psych ward or in a rehab and not knowing how I got there. And so I was really angry at God because I was like, why the hell am I still here? I keep trying to die. You won't let me die. What is going on? And so I felt like I got the message like, okay, you're here for a reason. You don't know what that reason is yet, but you're not going to die. It's not time for you to die. These drugs aren't working. So it's time to get sober. And I made a decision, you know what? I'm not going to take this addiction into my 40s. And I didn't. And so I came into a 12-step program, realized how selfish and self-centered I was, became willing to do the steps, and I learned to be honest and open-minded and be a service to other people.
So how like because I felt that way about my 30s and I
Hmm.
got into rehab at 31.
Yeah,
How early before 40? Because you said 39. When's your birthday?
December 1st.
Okay, so you were like 3.5 months away from.
Yeah.
You were collecting a 90-day chip around your 40th.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's
Yeah.
good. Still, you get it
Yeah.
when you get it. You know, there's
Yes.
there's no wrong way to get it when you're 40 or 30 or 50. There's a guy that's been on my
Yeah.
show a couple times, and he was 50, and he
Uh-huh.
was in addiction for 45 years. And his addiction started when he was 5.
Yeah.
But he has a year sober, and he is doing amazing for what he can do. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how long. And then plus, like, so now, how did you get into? Let's get into your show. What made you want to
Hmm.
start your show? Like, I know I started mine. What made you get into yours?
Yeah. I just really felt like, I always had this major fear of speaking. But I always felt like I started to experience so much growth because of the 12-step program. I was in a home group that required me, and they would call on people when it was time to share. So I would share 3 minutes a day. And I felt that every time that I shared, I would have all of these realizations. So at first, the reason why I created my channel on YouTube was because I needed to express myself. And I felt that I got a lot of clarity when I would express myself. And then eventually it became a point where I wanted to share the things that I had learned in my journey, because I know that I wasn't the only one that was on this path. And other people benefit from hearing my stories. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's funny, I think the sharing early on especially is really important when you're going to meetings.
Right.
I used to do like stand up comedy before I got sober, and in addiction I was doing stand up. So I was used to talking to
Yeah.
people and, being vulnerable and opening up in front of people. But now I got sober, I'm like, how do I do this, sober, So
Right.
I made it a point, and I was going to a lot of meetings that were like stand at a podium and share. You're not sharing
Yes.
sitting down. You got to walk up to the front and you got to stand there and
Right.
share. So it forced me to start doing that. So I kind of like, I talked to my sponsor. He's like, you can share every day. It's okay. He's like, you're not, take it. So like, there was some times where I swear, like, and I think I even do this now, where I'll start talking. I'm like, man, I hope I find a point halfway through this, but I just need to say something,
Yeah.
just to like feel like you're getting something off your chest, and that's
Right.
why the meetings are so important for me. And if
Hmm.
I don't have people here for a meeting, doing this podcast is important for me because it's
Yeah.
basically, are you an AA or an NA person?
AA, but I do go to NA sometimes as well.
So then, a meeting is only two alcoholics having a conversation.
Right. Right.
This is a meeting for me. If no one's here in the morning, this is a meeting for me where it's two of us having a conversation. So, and
Yeah.
I think it's so important. How long ago did you start your show?
I think it's been about a year, but I didn't really make a decision to really start creating content until a couple of months ago. I had a lot of limiting beliefs. I allowed fear to really step in and control the fact that I wasn't making any content. Um, I started to question myself, and really, yeah, fear kept me from creating.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. It's almost like because fear can keep us in addiction.
Hmm.
Fear can put us into addiction. Fear will keep us in addiction. I was just thinking about this the other day about fear and desperation.
Yeah.
How fe- you're desperate to get sober, but you're also desperate to not live that life, because you're so afraid of living a life that is going to not be chaotic.
Right.
It's we get used to the chaos of
Hmm.
what addiction is and active addiction is. And I see a lot of people, they get sober and they relapse because it's too calm.
Yes.
They are used to the controlled chaos. They understood the chaos. It made sense to them. And usually
Hmm.
they grew up in a house that was wild and crazy and they were used to that anyway. It was always parents were alcoholics too. They were used
Yeah.
to screaming going on, they were used to fighting. So the chaos was something that they were just used to. So the sharing's important, especially now. Do you do interviews with other people, or is it you, or are they solo?
So far, I've only done one collaboration, and then you're the second interview that I've ever done. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
This
really,
episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. The name sounds familiar because it is where my podcast studio is held. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. And since we can't get any of the local businesses to sponsor what we do here, I figure I'll sponsor the podcast. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet somewhere. I can do this in a basement somewhere. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery, and I can do this podcast. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. We've had a lot of amazing success stories that keep me so filled with gratitude that I do this. We're here all day long, running meetings all day long because we want to help as many people as we can. And even when we help one, that's the biggest victory in the world. And that's how I feel right now. So if you can help out what we do here, then that would be amazing. We do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to. And, all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on. If you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a
I'd
sponsor.
really like to continue to do that. Bringing in different energy and other people's perspective. I mean, I think that that's so awesome what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. I like doing panels too, and I can have you on for a panel now. I don't like putting
Yes.
somebody on a panel interview
Uh-huh.
unless I've already had you tell your story. You know,
Okay.
I want people on the panels that have already had their story out there for like my listeners to be like,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, I saw Michelle's episode. I know what she's talking about because I've heard her story before or something like
Right.
that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do panels more often too. Whenever I did one so far with 3 other people, and it's hard to schedule something for 4 of us like all at the same time to sit down for an hour.
Yes.
And the first time we discussed stigmas,
Mhm.
around people in, because I could talk all day about stigma. Like, I feel the stigmas have gone from what I felt like in addiction into
Mhm.
in recovery, all the stigmas that are in recovery from people in recovery.
Right.
Like, recovery is not easy. Stop making this harder for us. Stop, like, there's
Right.
people that judge everyone's recovery. I'm not sure if you ever have to feel that way, but the ones that are judging everyone's recovery, it's like, are you trying to get them to back into using? Just be happy that they're not doing their drug of choice.
Right.
Like, how are you with harm reduction? Do you know about it?
How am I with harm reduction?
Some people aren't
What are you
believers in it.
specifically? What was that?
Some people don't believe in harm reduction.
Oh, well, I mean, that's how it all started off for me. Um, like for me, for example, just to see if we're on the same page, like for me, it was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to stick a needle in my arm. I'm going to start snorting heroin. I'm not going to take pills anymore. I'm just going to drink. Well, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm just going to smoke cigarettes. Well, I've decided not to smoke cigarettes anymore. I'm going to just start using nicotine gum and then lozenges, and then I'm going to cut out the caffeine. And so it's for me, my addiction didn't just stop like immediately. There were steps and how it took place.
Yeah, you definitely, because like I remember when I first got sober, I was gonna quit smoking and do all this, and my sponsor was like, "Whoa, you
Yes.
you gotta calm down."
Yeah.
He's like, "You're
Yeah.
doing way too." He was like, "Pick something, and it can't
Uh-huh.
be drugs or alcohol, but pick something. Either it's your diet
Right.
or smoke cigarettes. I don't know what to tell you, but you got to pick something." I was like, "Well, I guess I'll smoke cigarettes still." So
Yeah.
here I am, and I still
Right.
smoke, and it is what it is. And I've
Uh-huh.
tried to quit, but it's not an easy process.
Yeah,
Quitting
it's not an
something that
easy process. And looking back at it, whenever I first got sober and I wanted to stop everything all at once, that was a form of self-sabotage. Because I thought that I could stop everything at once, but if I tried, it was just way too heavy for me, and eventually I would go back. And I had
because
to
if you
learn from
yeah
that.
because if you fail with
Hmm.
something that's like, say, and it could be a dumb failure, like, oh shit, I ate McDonald's today and I
Yeah.
broke my diet. You're like, well, fuck it, I might as well put a needle in my arm because I just broke my diet.
Yes.
you know
Yes. That's the time. That's the way that we think.
yeah, it is. It's and it's so sad. It's and I knew that just based on myself. And when I talk to other people like you, I'm like, let me guess, you had a boyfriend, and I know that because we're not alone. We
Yeah.
think that we're so unique in our stories, like, oh, no one ever experienced that or been through it. No, we all have. Like,
Hmm.
we've all experienced it in one way or another, or seen it, or know
Right.
somebody, or talk to somebody.
Hmm.
And it's important to keep putting these stories out there,
Yeah.
because the more that we're putting your story out there, there could be a girl somewhere in who knows where. They're like, oh my God, my relationships are 7 years long too. Oh my God, I mold myself in. And then that girl could be at 32 going, you know what? I'm not going to do this at 39.
Yeah.
I want to figure this shit out right now,
Yeah.
and that's like kind of the point, and I find that a lot of addicts, whenever they find out our ages, they feel like relieved. I remember when I met my newest sponsee, he was fresh out of rehab, when he walked in my doors. And he was just like, how they look when they first walk in, even out of rehab, they're still beaten, especially at their
Hmm.
15-year meth run.
Yeah.
And he was like, so when did you get sober? I was like 31 and a half. And he's like, oh, that's how old I am. And it gave him a lot of like, a pep, like, oh shit, you were 31, I'm 31. And turns out we're like 2 weeks apart, like
Yeah.
our birthdays in September, like 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, yeah, and you'll be 32 when I turn 32 collecting chips. So like I started reminding of all those little victories. I was like, dude, like I did this when I was your age. You still have plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that it's always good to be open about all of our past and
Mm-hmm.
put it out there. I get why people don't want to put their past out there.
Right.
When did you start getting so open about like talking about your past like this? Like, fuck it, I'll put it on the internet.
Like a year ago. That's one thing that I was going to say, JD, like that I really love about people in recovery that are really doing this is that they're living their life out loud and they have no shame or guilt attached to their past. There's nothing that I will keep out of my story. Um,
It's
I have learned, huh?
it's so funny that I
Yeah.
find that like normies, people that
Hmm.
don't, they drink or whatever, they
Yeah.
don't drink like we drank, but they
Right.
know how to party or whatever. They don't do this kind of work
Hmm.
on themselves either.
Yeah.
So, I've talked to people, they're like, I don't know how you open up the way you open up. I don't know how you talk about the things that you talk about. I
Hmm.
could never say some of those things. It's like, well, you feel these things too. Like you're human. We all
Yeah.
feel these things. We all like, so you're just like not outwardly expressing these things and just holding them in. Like
Yeah.
that sucks. Like I'm so glad that I'm
Yes.
fortunate enough that I was, in addiction for a while, that it led me to things like therapy and 12 steps and working on myself and mental health to
Right.
understand all this because like you said, depression isn't going away.
Yeah.
Like anxieties don't like they are still there. It's just they're more manageable now.
Hmm.
We thought
Yeah.
we were managing them with drugs and alcohol, but
Yeah.
we were not doing well at it.
Yeah.
Like compared to now.
Right. Yeah.
How
One thing that I wanted to say was that because of this 12-step program, I just realized how dangerous it is for me not to speak about my past. It's so dangerous for me to keep things bottled up and not share about my struggles and how I got through things because, like you said, the people that are not in 12-step programs, they don't have these steps to help them out of a hole or a dark place. We have steps in place that are there to help pull us out from the gates of hell, basically.
yeah.
um, and if we have the honesty and the open-mindedness and willingness and humility and the courage to talk about what we've been through and talk about how we got through it and where we're at now, there's a lot of strength in that. And not only does it help me, but it helps other people who are listening to me because I don't know about you, but growing up as a kid, I was taught to put on like a front, a face, like everything is absolutely okay. Don't talk about your problems. Just keep it all to yourself. Keep it locked behind closed doors. And that's what drove me into addiction because I felt like I couldn't be myself. And if I expressed myself, I was looked down upon and punished.
Yeah. No, and that's almost kind of like what I was saying earlier too about feeling not heard,
Mhm.
and feeling like I couldn't express and talk about things that I wanted to talk about. And I think, and you said about being an empath, I think that a lot of us empaths are addicts because, and it's almost like when you mentioned fear, one of the
Mhm.
things that fear is driven by is not understanding something.
Mhm.
So one of the things that empaths are driven by is not understanding why somebody else isn't upset.
Yeah.
How can you not be as upset as I am right now about this situation?
Right.
If you know the facts, how are you okay with everything that's happening when you know the
Mhm.
facts? Because I'm devastated when I know the facts,
Right.
and that would cause you to drink or use because you're so upset not only about whatever is making you upset, but you're upset even about the people that don't care about what's making you upset.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's like the
Yeah.
extra on top of that.
Yeah, of
So
course. And the thing that I always got upset about is, like you said, like, how can this person not feel the same way that I do? But what I realize now that I've been sober is most people aren't wired like us. Like a lot of people, when I talk about empathy or how I feel around other people, energy and all this stuff, they just have no clue what I'm referring to. Um, so it's just very interesting to witness that, and come to a place of acceptance that, okay, we're not all the same, but there's so many solutions as to how we can stay sober and still be empathic but not take on everyone else's energy.
yeah, and that's the thing we have to learn is not taking on that energy too. It's easy for
Hmm.
us to take it on as empaths, and it's almost as if we want to take it on sometimes to like,
Yeah.
like, all right, I can fix this. I can turn this around. And
Right.
especially in sobriety, you almost want to change that scope for people.
Yes.
And I always say that anybody can do the 12 steps, even if they're
Right.
not, an alcoholic. For people that are watching or listening that aren't, or just, watching the support and they're not really alcoholics or anything.
Hmm.
Alcohol is only what mentioned one time in the
Yeah.
steps, and it's in the first couple words.
Right.
And you can take that word out and put in whatever is making your life unmanageable and do the steps from there.
Absolutely. Because
Everyone, yeah, whether you think you're addicted to something or not, everyone always thinks, oh, the first step is admitting it. Bullshit.
hmm
The first step is finding what makes your life unmanageable and how to fix it.
yeah.
That's what the first step is about, is that unmanageability part.
Yeah. I've had some really close friends of mine that are not alcoholic or addict, but they've had some other things that have made their life really unmanageable. And they have done the 12 steps and it has changed their life so much. The 12 steps, I really feel, like you said, anybody can work them. And if somebody does it, with an open heart and with honesty, that they can get past whatever it is that's causing so much powerlessness.
Oh yeah, I have somebody. She's like 23 years old, and I can't imagine being 23 and that forth thinking. But she comes to our meetings, and
Hmm.
she wanted to learn the steps.
Yeah.
So I went over the steps with her. She wanted
Nice.
her and her boyfriend come to meetings. It's like I can't imagine being in a couple being this,
Yeah.
open with your partner. Like you guys are killing it, and they're always like worried. I'm like, no, you guys are killing it. Trust me. At 23, and you're working on your mental health like this, you're killing it.
Right.
But yeah, not everybody. You don't need to be an alcoholic or an addict to do the steps, And that's the nice thing is you can get free of a lot of your thinking that tears us down and causes anxiety and depression
Hmm.
just by working the steps and just by
Yeah.
doing them and being honest and working an honest program. Like, being honest when you don't have to be, but
Right.
just because you feel like you have to be is important
Yeah.
because you have to sleep with your own head at night.
Hmm.
You're the one that knows how honest you were at the end of the day,
Yeah.
even honest to yourself. And that shit will cause relapses. I don't have the
Hmm.
energy for that. I not in
Yeah.
my 30s, not at 35. Nope. I'm just gonna be way too honest. If you don't like how honest I am,
Hmm.
there's the door because
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right. Yeah. I'm at the exact same point, JD. I just, I don't have the energy to try to arrange life to suit myself anymore. Trying to expend energy in lies and manipulation, that just drains the heck out of me. And so I just choose not to do that and be as honest as I possibly can.
And that's the other thing too is I'm not gonna let your resentments drive me anymore.
Yeah.
Before, like we'd mentioned about resentments earlier, but
Uh-huh.
like resentments would drive me to like go out and get high or get drunk, and it wouldn't even be my own resentments. It
Yeah.
would be your projection of me, your
Hmm.
resentment of me that's making me upset. I have no control over your resentments. I'm not going to try to
Yeah.
control them.
Yeah. I used to feel like, other people's resentments would make me feel a certain way, but in reality, I would make my felt self feel a certain way. And what I realized is I'm not responsible for the story that that person made up in their head about me.
Yeah.
That's their issue. I don't need to save them. I don't need to convince them that they're right or, uh, or whatever, just to let go of control, let that person be wherever they're at in their journey. And yeah, just really focus on changing myself instead of other people.
Yeah, and you nailed it. That's exactly the point. Is people are gonna think what they're gonna think. They're gonna say
Mm-hmm.
what they're gonna say, and I don't care to be the bad guy in your narrative. I can be the bad guy in your narrative. I can live with that because I'm the good guy in plenty of other narratives.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I look at that now. Like I'll make amends where I needed to make amends. I still have some that I need to make, but they're on my list and I'm willing to make them. Just haven't
Yeah.
found the right moment yet to make some of them. But and some of them will hurt myself or others. But still, you know,
Yeah.
the amends I'm willing to do. But yeah, I'm not gonna hold on to your resentments.
Yeah.
I don't have the time or energy anymore to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me.
You're welcome.
And definitely will asking you to come back on to, have you on a panel. And if you are looking for somebody to collab with for your show, you let me know and we'll
All
figure
right.
out something. I'll always be down.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me, and I really appreciate all you're doing.
No problem. Your link will be in the description. So if somebody wants to listen to it or watch it, just go into the description of what we're watching right now or listening to. It'll be in there. It'll be, marked Spotify link, YouTube link. You would go to her page, subscribe, like, whatever you do on there, and, check it out.
Yeah.
So
Thank
thank
you
you,
so much.
Michelle. Have a good day.
All right. You
All right.
too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.